Hi. In this session, I will walk you through the status of climate change education in various countries of the world. And I will also take a closer look at what are we doing regarding climate change education in India. Now, we celebrate the Earth Day in April, World Environment Day in June, and many more such days in order to remind the general public, specialists, as well as policymakers about various processes, various policy decisions, and the initiatives by the agency like United Nations, etc., to the knowledge of, to the mindset, to the knowledge of the public. However, such celebrations unfortunately end up with one day of gala of celebrations. Now, what we have to focus now here is, what about climate change education? What about the knowledge we give away to the public, irrespective of the gender, irrespective of their age group, and irrespective of the geographic region where they live? In fact, the climate change consequences and the mitigative measures are extremely important, that it goes to the midst of the general public so that they will be cautious about and prepared mentally, at least a self-warning sort of thing, in order to not pursue some task that would have otherwise led to climate change. Well, what is the reason for climate change? We have been told time and again that fossil fuel emission is the primary reason for the climate change. And now, what we do is, let us see what are the different regions of the world, the countries of the world are doing in order to contain the climate change, rather in order to spread the word. That's it. Tell 5 people, it was once upon a slogan, tell 5 others about the consequences of climate change. But to do that, we need a basic understanding of the climate change, its consequences, as well as mitigative measures. In fact, in the developing countries, like for example, USA, Canada, Britain, European Union, Japan, and Australia, in these places, in one way or other, the climate change related education is offered at the school level. It's very important that we take the message to the school education level. For example, in the UNESCO, for example, let us take. UNESCO had come up with a blueprint of climate change education in schools, in education system. Well, when UNESCO brings out a blueprint of the content of the course, then obviously the member countries have to copy it. Member countries will have to implement it. This sort of thing in 2019, for example, the 2019, that is just before the what is called our COVID pandemic season, or beginning of COVID pandemic, the NPR, National Public Radio. In fact, very few people know what National Public Radio is. And this is actually the only public radio in the United States. Public radio means a radio station network, a radio network funded by taxpayer money. That is the importance. And like, for example, I see a parallel with Akashvani in India. In other words, that we have scores and scores of FM channels, which is actually a private enterprise or under the private enterprise, whereas Akashvani is actually government funded, taxpayer funded. Similarly, the NPR is a public funded or taxpayer funded radio network in the United States. They have engaged a opinion pollster, well, through a French agency. Opinion pollster, not through a French agency, who is called IPSOS. IPSOS, that is the abbreviation. In order to get a picture of what level of climate change education content is provided for in the school system in the United States. And in fact, the final report of the IPSOS on behalf of the NPR told that aspects of climate change are covered in the schools, and the 82% of the teachers involved in school education in US are prepared and ready to teach climate change and mitigative measures in the schools. 74% among the polled teachers believed that climate change effects are affecting aspects of environment, economics, and society. That's a great advantage. 82% of the teachers involved of the polled teachers in the schools, they believe in climate change, they talk about climate change, and 74% are concerned about the impacts of climate change to the society, to the economy, and the environment of the country. Now, in Britain, the situation is a little different. Britain, the University of Bristol in Britain actually took a piece of research and covered the at least 626 primary and secondary school teachers in that country. Primary and secondary school teachers, 620 in number. Britain is fairly a small country, and obviously it's a big percentage of the total number of teachers involved. The researchers reported, or the Bristol University researchers reported that the teachers generally favored the inclusion of climate change education in the school system, at the school level. And 72% of the teachers were talking to the kids in the schools, already talking to the kids about the climate change phenomenon. There is a deficiency in climate change education in Europe, in spite of the fact that UNESCO had come up with this suggestion. UNESCO says that climate change is a real and a steady threat, evolving threat to humanity. All the generations, again, as UNESCO, should know the impact and threat of climate change, and to the society as well as to the nations. Hence, education is a key input into the response to the climate change phenomenon. In order to check the European preparedness on climate change, an online survey was carried out by 50 academies, European Union, by 50 academies of sciences in that union, and 64 responses from 14 countries were sought and gotten. The analysis of the responses revealed existence of adequate awareness about climate change, but not about climate change mitigative measures or climate change action projects. The study also showed that the quality of climate change education and content for distribution among the school system across the European Union needs to be carried out with much more vigor and rather faster. That is what is happening in Europe. Then what about India? There is a university in the east coast of the United States called Yale University. Yale University did a study of the Indian situation way back, not very way back, in 2020, and 65% of the and came to the conclusion that 65% of the Indians are unaware of the climate change and mitigative measures. Very sorry state, even though we are a country of more than 1 billion people, and probably we are now more populous than China is, yet 65% of Indians are not aware of what is called the climate change phenomenon or the mitigative measures either. So, I will say that in this situation, the National Children's Science Congress, Indian school children from class 10 up to, from the ages, the middle school and the high school and the higher secondary school aged children participate every year, used to participate every year. And there was a big disruption after the the COVID pandemic thing. And in other words, there is a framework of creating extra awareness or specialized awareness among the school children through what is called National Children's Science Congress. It has been in place and since '93, and once every 2 years a new theme of scientific inquiry is identified, and these children across the country are encouraged to participate in this program. And obviously there will be a huge number of children, at the school level, at the education district level, at the state level, in every state of India. And the state level toppers then go to some designated town or university town in India or a state capital, and there will be a national meet where huge number of children, 200 plus kids come and participate, presenting their findings or little pieces of research they have undertaken, and to a larger national audience, to a national judging committee. And definitely every state will be the top presenter, performer in this, from every state is honored, etc., etc. So in this process, only once or so that a weather and climate theme appeared in the list, very strangely. Anyway, now for example, Lakehead University and Learning, Lakehead University and Learning in Canada undertook a study of the content and education in school system in Canada in addressing and introducing the climate change and climate change mitigation measures. They had collected responses from 1,231 teachers spanning across K-12 and 571 parents and 4,866 students in age groups in grades of 7 to 12 in Canada. And the results showed that 85% of the citizens are concerned about the question of climate change, and 79 are concerned about whereas 79% are concerned about climate change. In other words, I should rephrase saying 79 are concerned about climate change, 85% citizens are certain that there will be climate change, and only 51% of the Canadians polled are informed rather well about climate change, and schools, and majority believed that schools should impart climate change education much more vigorously and enthusiastically. Canada, in fact, wanted in 1995 Paris Convention on introduction of climate change education in schools. Look at it. In 1995, Canadian delegation to the Paris Convention wanted introduction of climate change in school education. In the post-war Japan, the educational policy landscape has a good deal of emphasis on what is called environmental education. Not exactly about climate change per se, but environmental education. I believe that Japanese government and the policy makers probably would have included what is called climate change mitigative measures in the school syllabus. Teachers in Japan believe that the school system, including teachers, are responsible for environmental education and the efficacy of the environmental education. Australia, another signatory to the Paris Conference, in 2000 Paris Conference of 2016 prioritized the responsibility of educating school children about climate change. Climate change covered in universities, society, and for example, in the syllabi of humanities, social sciences, and geography syllabus for the secondary and senior secondary schools are now these days introduced. In other words, Australia has not only gone to the Paris Conference and wanted prioritizing special responsibility of educating school kids in climate change, and they have also actually introduced, like I said, in the syllabi of humanities, social sciences, and geography courses in the senior secondary and secondary levels. But however, it is, as Canadians admit, there is kind of a lack of coordination between what is called the school system controlled by the regions or the states of the federation and the policy of the federal government. Such a dichotomy is expected, and only time will cure such problems in the sphere of education. I would say that, to sum up, all these countries like United States, Canada, Britain, European Union countries, Japan, and Australia have actually implemented a special course content to address the climate change and the mitigative measures at the school system itself. In other words, from the secondary and the higher secondary levels are that is a great advantage, because most people who go to schools do not go to university anyway. That is a problem. In other words, they get into what is called vocational courses and then go for employment, earning, and living a comfortable life. This is the format of the school education and the college education are researched in the so-called Western world. Now, I will address the Indian situation in another episode. Thank you.